Hi friends, I'm Penny Hunt and this is Penny Heart to Heart. Today I wanted to just take a little bit of your time and talk to you about my latest writing, What Will Bring You Joy Today? And it occurred to me that maybe we're struggling finding some joy in our life right about now. There's a lot going on in the world, there's a lot going on probably in our lives. And so sometimes joy, we think, is hard to find. So I wanted to tell you a story, and this is what I wrote about in that writing. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, as always, I put the link with these Penny Heart to Hearts. The writing was about my husband, who retired 5 years ago. And I think sometimes people struggle with retirement because so many of us put all of our identity in the work that we do. And so if something happens, if we have a job change, if we are laid off, if we have to move and have a new position, or we're searching for a new job, or if we retire, we lose that piece of our identity that we have attached to our job, that everything that we've done has been wrapped up in what we are, what we do for a living. And so sometimes people struggle with retirement. I was a little concerned. My husband had owned his business for 38 years. So I was concerned when he was selling it that he might, when he retires and doesn't have that anymore, that piece of his life, that he would struggle a little bit. So I came up with an idea. I made him new business cards. I had new business cards printed with a new title on it that was associated with our lives, and his contact information, his email, his phone, so that when after he retired and that business was sold and people said, how can I get a hold of you, or what are you doing now, that he had a business card to hand out. So he had a new identity. Because what happens when you retire, everybody says to you, what are you going to do now? What will you do now? Like the in between the lines message is that you have to do something after you retire. And really, do you? Many of us don't. Isn't that why we work all of our lives, so that we can retire and enjoy life and relax? That's what retirement should be about. Retirement should be fun and relaxing and doing the things that we want. So he was thrilled because he now had a new identity. He had a business card, so when people said that, he could just hand them a business card. They knew how to get a hold of him, so he didn't lose the connection with everybody that knew him, knew how to find him because of his business, and now that was gone. So he still had a way of connecting with people and sharing his identity with people. So it's been over 5 years now. And the business cards don't come out as much as they did in the beginning, because now most of his friends, most people that know him, know how to get a hold of him, know where he's at. But here's what happens. Even now, all the questions continue. People will say, well, what do you do all day? How do you feel your time? What are you doing? Aren't you bored? And those questions all come from their fear of what it's going to be like when they retire. And so, those questions are interesting, but my husband has taught me a lesson. And, you know, I learned these life lessons from 2-year-olds. I learned them from 88-year-olds. And this one I learned from my husband, because he came up with the greatest response. When people say, aren't you bored? What do you do all day? What do you do with your time? He says to them, I wake up every morning and I think about what will bring me joy today. And I do that. Let that sink in just a minute. That is what happens when people hear that response. They get very quiet, because I know what they're thinking. The bubble over their head and the wheels are turning, and they're thinking, I wonder what that's like. To be able to wake up in the morning and do exactly what it is that will bring you joy during your day. I think many of us think we're so busy with work. We have to get to work. We have kids to get to school. We have all these things going on in our lives that we don't have time to even think about what would bring us joy. We just do what we have to do. We do what is expected of us. We do what the requirements are of our jobs and our lives. And maybe there's some joy in there, but maybe there's not. And so when people hear his response, that I wake up every morning and I think about what will bring me joy today, and I do that, I think they really have to ponder what that means. the point of the writing was not only that great lesson that I learned from him, and I've heard him say that hundreds of times to people, and it's kind of become a thing. He'll tell me in the morning what's going to bring him joy today, and that's what he's going to do. And I want to tell you too, people are shocked because they think, oh, well, it must be big stuff that brings you joy. And it's really not. My husband is a lifelong learner, so sometimes he reads all day, and that brings him great joy. Sometimes he does like to play blackjack. Sometimes he'll drive and go play blackjack. Sometimes he takes a nap, and that brings him joy, or he sleeps in late, or he stays up late. He loves music, and he listens to music on YouTube and on his iPad. It's the little bitty things that bring him joy. It's not, we love to travel, and we love to have adventures, and right now in our world, that's kind of come to a stop, but really, it's not the big things. It's the little things that he does that bring him joy. We live in snow country, so we will have snow, and he's got a little tractor that he plows our snow with in our driveway, and I watch him out there, and that brings him joy. He'll put earphones in and listen to books on tape or music, and he plows, and that brings him a certain joyful contentment. It's the little things that bring him joy. It's not the great big things. So, although I learned this lesson from my husband, and it was a story about him, how I want this to relate to you is because, as I said, we get so busy and we do all the things that we have to do in life, and joy is probably bottom of our list, or maybe we get a little resentful because we don't have time for ourselves. We don't have time for things that bring us joy. And so I said, maybe it is time to find those snippets of joy in our lives. Maybe it's time, because I think we spend too much time associating our total identity with our work. When I made the business card for him, and when I talk about that idea, I say in there, it's time to create your own identity. When you retire, or when you have different pockets of change in your life, you can be whatever you want to be. So your new business card could say you're an artist, or a volunteer, or a grandma. Or I think now that he's got this great answer that he responds to people when they ask him what he does all day, maybe his new business card now should say, I'm a joy finder. And wouldn't that be fabulous to hand to people? And they'd say, what is that? And then he can explain his concept of joy. So what if we start doing this in our lives now? Why should we wait till we retire to become a joy finder? Find little snippets, little small snippets of joy in your day. And we can do this in the morning when we get up. Maybe it's meditation brings me joy. Maybe it's reading. I like to read something motivational in the morning that brings me joy. I'm a writer, as you know, so I'm always writing, but I journal as well. So I'm writing down thoughts and ideas, and that brings me joy. Obviously, interacting with my kids and my grandkids bring me joy. So I can do a 5-minute FaceTime with one of my grandkids, and that fills my heart with joy. So if we think about these little bitty snippets of time, little snippets of joy, it doesn't have to be, I don't think any of us have a 24-hour day of joy. We get those lucky days once in a while, but it's really the small moments. And so don't wait until you retire to wake up in the morning and say, I will do today what brings me joy. Think about it every day. Maybe it's your lunch break. I used to, when I went to work at a job and didn't write and speak and have my own time, I would take my lunch break, I would bring lunch, and I would go sit at the park and watch the ducks, which was fascinating to me, and watch the people in the park, and I loved it. It brought me joy. So think about, only you can decide. Think about what you decide brings you joy, and fill your day with those little snippets. Even if we're super busy, we have time to do that. Maybe it's making your own homemade latte or something in the afternoon, or whatever it is that brings you joy. Think about doing that. So that is what the writing is about. I think it's a fabulous idea. It was a wonderful lesson for me to learn, and that's why I shared it with you. Again, if you haven't read it, it's in the link is with this video, so you can go to it. The audio is always with it. And so I invite you to go read it if you haven't read it yet. And the day is early. You still have plenty of time to come up with a snippet of joy in your life today. So spend a little bit of time thinking about what will bring you joy and do that. I thank you for spending this time with me. I'm Pennie Hunt. This has been Pennie Heart to Heart. Thanks for watching.